Welcome to the interview. I'm Ciara Pressler. This is Pregame, and this is where we talk to some of our favorite creators, innovators, and game changers to find out what they're doing, how they are doing it, and their best pro tips for authentic success. I'm so excited today to have my dear friend, Lindsey Murphy in the house. Welcome, Lindsey.
Hi.
We are still on that quarantine tip, Q-tip. So we are from each of our homes today, but not that far apart, really, geographically. You're in Portland, right?
I could probably walk to your house from where I am if I was really into uphill walking right now.
Yeah. It's tragic, though, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's needed. I don't know. I'm cool with it.
Yeah. So how are you getting along right now?
Honestly, I'm great. Definitely sort of the ins and the outs. Like I'm an extreme extrovert, so being able to satiate myself and like my social needs has been really, really tough. Like normally if I work at home, hi Livy, oh hey Trish. Hi, Livy. Sorry.
It's all good. Gotta welcome everyone.
No, but I work from home. I have an office and a studio that's like temporary and part-time, gifted to me by some amazing local female-founded businesses here in Portland. And so, but I usually work from home. If I'm working from home, all day, if I'm here for a day or three by myself, I'll go outside and do a night walk and, walk by bars and see what conversations I can get into. And not being able to do that right now is honestly the hardest thing. And then of course there's like, personal family stuff and things like that going on. But beyond that, it's just, I've been feeling very, very blessed in this experience. And I've been really appreciating and enjoying and proud of how a lot of the people that I get to sort of witness virtually have been leaning into this time when it comes to like, healing and starting new things and all that stuff. So I've been enjoying the majority of it, but like everybody else, it's in and out.
Yeah, we have different types of days. Sometimes
sure.
You just have to take it as it comes. I mean, last couple times we hung out in person while we still could, you were enormously centered. And one thing I really love about you, probably the thing I love most about you, is that you have just a really strong core and sense of purpose and a sense of service and connecting with other people, giving other people just a really strong spiritual center. How does that inform your life right now, but your work also?
I mean, the same as before. Everything about who I am and what I give to the world and how I choose to see the world is from that place. And it's interesting because in this season of my life, as we're all flexing into this bizarrety that we're all experiencing together and feels inexplicable and, permanent, which I think in some ways it is. I know that what I had to believe was faith before is real. And so I feel more encouraged and more clear now that I'm on the right path, that we as a collective are on the right path. Even if growing and healing is hard sometimes and inconvenient, I know that what I saw and the place that I was able to get to and operate from is a real place and that it's just expanding. So
I love that perspective. I'm going to take some of that with me this weekend for sure. A lot of what you do is speaking, and of course you're no stranger to being on screen because you have this web-based series, which we'll get into, but you do a lot of live events too. I assume there's been a lot of cancellations and upheaval in the live event world.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Schedule change.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, you go back every year. You're the digital host of TEDx Portland, which is a massive event. Everyone always loves seeing your face there and online. So are they postponing that for next
Yeah,
year?
from what I understand, I don't know that it's public information yet. I know that the postponement is public information, but I think that they're aiming at like an early to mid 2021 cast. It will, this year it was set to be at the Moda Center, making TEDx Portland the largest in the world, even larger than you know, TED proper in British Columbia. So I know that they're looking to maintain that. So it really depends on the basketball schedule and what's happening at Moda, as far as I understand. But yeah, it's looking like you know, the first 6 months of 2021.
You just have to stay flexible and see what's going to happen.
We're in it together, guys.
yeah, we're all going through it. So tell me a little bit about what you did online right when this all hit. You started live streaming.
Yeah, so so I have a kids science show on YouTube called the Fab Lab with Crazy Aunt Lindsey. This year will make 10 years that I've been doing it. November 4th will be its 10th birthday, which is crazy. I went full time with it 3 years ago in 2017. And for the past 10 years / 3 years, you know, it started as a hobby, and then when it got to be full time, when it was a hobby, I was doing maybe, you know, a few videos a year, you know, anywhere from 3 to 12, you know, depending upon, you know, what was happening in my life. And so, you know, for the last 3 years, doubling production to, you know, a solid, you know, 12 to 24 videos a year. But then, and we were gearing up to do the 5th season of the Fab Lab, which we were aiming at 24 full episodes, 24 weekly episodes, and legitimately like was preparing to bring my team together, hired this team after lots of hits and misses of, you know, finding the right people to work on it. And then all this happened. And when I realized that it was going to be very unlikely that the world was going to be able to function normally for a long enough period of time, I was in my bed, just sort of looking around my apartment, thinking about my parents, anyone that watches the show, the kids that watch the show, the families, the teachers, I call them my kids or my families. I just knew that their life was shifting drastically too. And it made me recall what my life was like when I was a childcare provider, when I was a babysitter. There was about an 18-month period from which the Fab Lab even came, where I was taking care of people's children in my mid-20s. And I just remember getting those emergency phone calls, you know, oh, you know, my husband has a work thing and I've got to go. Can you come and watch the kids? Or it's date night. Can you come? Or, you know, the kids are sick, but I've got meetings. Can you? And so just this like very like last minute need, reaching out to, you know, someone that they trust. And I just sort of in my mind, I was sort of receiving the phone calls from all of these people who, you know, couldn't send their kids to school while they themselves had to be working and learning how to work from home and doing that with children while the world seems to be melting. Just literally just like the babysitter in me collided with the producer and content creator in me. And I was like, I can do a live stream. And I'm like looking around my apartment, like, you know, which I live in a very, a nicely sized, but a small studio. And I'm like, you know, how can I make a studio? How can I do this here so that I can participate in being a solution to what my families need right now on a scale, to scale in a safe way. And, you know, with it, literally the next day, I got a text from a really good friend and colleague of mine out of MIT. Shout out to Nisha of MLab. And she was like, hey, are you thinking of doing anything? Boston is, you know, just extended their 2 weeks to 6 weeks. And I was like, yeah, I was thinking about doing this thing. And she was like, great, I've got a potential sponsor on the line. And so it was just, it all kind of came together and it turned into a, you know, 4-week, 3 to 4 hour a day experience, something that I dubbed the digital daycare, live streaming 3 to 4 hours a day, every day, was quite a thing. We ended up doing around 60 hours of content that's available on the YouTube channel now, that I'll be working through in the weeks and months ahead. But yeah, I mean, producing a live show, going from doing, you know, a weekly show or even a monthly show, which is more like what it was in the past, to a daily show was quite a lot. But yeah, the digital daycare was what I was doing, and you know, we'll see what happens in the future. More to come.
How do you come up with content for 3 to 4 hours of streaming every day?
Wow. Pushing everything aside and just imagining, you know, just imagining what would be fun for kids. You know, kids love the Fab Lab projects. I have always wanted to be a kids cooking show host. So I'm like, what recipes can I share with kids? What books can I read to kids? Who in my network, what friends do I have that I trust that have something awesome to offer, be it singing lessons or drawing lessons or even language, teaching languages, and not necessarily professional teachers, but do you speak Spanish? Do you speak Gesanan, which is a language, a very rare language in Ethiopia? You know, would you be willing to share what you know with my audience? And just, I mean, literally, you know, calls out on Twitter. I mean, there was this massive Twitter effort where we had tons of subject matter experts from across the globe who were like, I will teach them about oceanography. I will teach them about, so both what do I already have to give? I've got thousands of projects probably. I'm also working on a book. The Fab Lab was blessed with a book deal earlier this year. Shout out to Timber Press and Workman Publishing. And so I was already working on my book and working on the Fab Lab season 5. So I've got all of these things. I'm just like, you know, what do I have here that I don't need to special order, or what can I run to Fred Meyer or New Seasons and grab and do this tomorrow. Yeah. So just getting creative and not thinking too much, honestly.
I mean, it's such a mark of a true like entrepreneurial creative person, is that when, you know, something huge happens, we're like, okay, what can I do? What can I create? How can I help people? What are the opportunities here? And you know, sometimes there's a crash after that too. I don't know if you experienced that, like a little tired, but
I was out for a couple weeks, not gonna lie. I was out.
I'm sure many parents are very grateful to you right now though.
Every day I hear it, and it's so encouraging, to the point that I'm like, how can I do that? How can I do more? You know, but yeah.
That feels good. I gotta say, you know, with the main series, the production quality is so good, the content level is so high, and everyone just puts stuff up online right now. You know, there's no shortage of content, there's no shortage of information, but when you're really trying to like rise above and create quality, how do you begin to approach that? Because I know everyone's like thought about launching that podcast or launching that series.
When it comes to quality specifically?
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I often like to share, and actually I usually have it handy, when I started this show, there weren't smartphones. You know, I don't know how many of you on the line right now, Yvonne, Arthur, Ciara. I don't know how many, and a couple other names I can't see, quite a few actually other names I can't see. I don't know how much of a study you guys have done if you're looking to start your own thing, but in some of the videos that I've seen from the gurus and the, you know, whoever's out there, they're saying, no, just start with a smartphone, just start with if you have an iPhone, then you're good. iPhones hadn't been invented yet. So I had literally nothing. I don't even think computers came with webcams yet. So I literally had nothing. I had done a consulting job with Xbox and had been given as a part of the job, and what is it?
Like a GoPro?
Do you remember Flip, the Flip HD cams?
Yep.
Those were like top of the line technology at the time. And I had received it, and that is what I used to shoot the first 2 seasons of the Fab Lab. And I jokingly say, very honestly, you know, in the beginning, I'd be babysitting one kid, and the slightly older kid or a neighbor would come over and be like holding the camera as I'm like making granola or making Play-Doh or something. So, you know, use what you have. You know, I sort of, it's interesting. I just stopped cringing at the first couple years of the Fab Lab, you know, how it looked, how I looked, you know, just sort of where life was at the time. But I just did it. I cared more about what I was giving to the world than what it looked like, because I knew that the seed and the heart and what I was hoping and envisioning would be the result, not just, you know, kids learning, but kids seeing themselves, kids seeing things that they've never seen before, classically hadn't seen in places, and what that would do to them as they grew into adults. I was more focused on the joy and the healing and the fun than I was, ooh, what does this look like? What does my hair look like? What does the video quality look like? So start with what you have, and truly, it's so true. As you go, things just get better. They just get better. And, you know, I look at, you know, the Blue Star Donuts video, or I look at, you know, the video we did with Ruby Receptionist. I look at season 4 and I'm like, dang, like this,
it's
like
good.
not perfect, sure, but dang, this is a long way that I've come. And then even, you know, working with my very small team and 6 iPhones to do the digital daycare, I'd never live streamed before in my life. I'd never worked with iPhones before. I'd never worked with, you know, Switcher Studios or whatever it is that I was using to put the videos out, and just the quality, the technology advances for you, and then as you do things, you learn, and then you attract people who are excellent at what they do and want to lend themselves to what you're doing and giving you advice or working with you. And it just gets better. Start where you are, start with what you have. If that means you have to beg and borrow, never steal, but if you have to beg and borrow, or just use whatever, you know, crappy-ish thing that you might have handy, be more about the heart, be more about the vision, be more about what it is that you're trying to give to the world than the package it's in, because the package will evolve. It'll evolve if you evolve.
I love that. So gotta ask, why science? Why a science-based show? Especially, you know, coming from your media marketing background, how did you get to science as a topic, and just for kids too?
Yeah. So, I mean, it happened very organically. I can't say that there was no point in my life that I'm like, I'm going to be a scientist. But I've always been a very interested person. I don't know if any of you have ever taken a Strength Finders test, which I highly recommend, right next to an Enneagram test. But if you've ever taken that, I took it maybe about, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. And I just made so much more sense, because one of my themes, it sort of tells you what your themes might be. One of my top themes was something called input. And at first I'm like, what does this even mean? And what it means is I gobble up information. I'm so curious that I go into these rabbit hole deep dives about all sorts of things. And sort of the analogy that the book will use is like a squirrel gathering nuts, you know, for a later day, oftentimes not knowing what that later day is going to be. So I've always been a natural researcher. I've always been a very curious person. I really have tons of gratitude to my mom, who, you know, from the time I was like 4, if I'm like, you know, Mom, what does this word mean? And she says, go to the dictionary, find out. Like, I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to empower you to empower yourself to go and seek out the answer, and not just be okay with, you know, with one answer, but learn how to use it, learn what it means to other people. Learn how it can contribute to others. And so I've always been that kind of person. And now with the internet, having grown with the internet, both as a person and as a professional, discovering things and wanting to share it, wanting to help people have real information, facts and truth, correcting things. Because I think a lot of us operate from misinformation, and there is correct information available. And
truth is a thing. Facts are a thing.
Facts are a thing, and so, learning what I'm learning and sharing what I'm learning and hearing from other people and seeing what can come from it. It was just something that was addictive. And so when I started the show, because I had been a childcare provider well before the show started, for about 1.5 years, kids would ask questions and I'd say, let's go find out. And you know, and then of course, many of them had homework to do. So it's like, what projects or what activities or what, you know, what websites or whatever it is can we find together that will help us to understand this more, or help to answer our questions, and how can we participate with it? And so when I started putting them on YouTube, the show started out called Doing Stuff with Crazy Aunt Lindsey. It wasn't the Fab Lab at first. It was just doing stuff with Crazy Aunt Lindsey. And it was just me doing, you know, stuff with kids that they thought was fun and that they wanted to do. Hey, Livy. And so after about 1.5 years of being on YouTube, honestly, Twitter, shout out to Danielle Lee, the urban scientist. She told me that it was a science show. I didn't realize that what I was doing was science or even science adjacent. And when I made that discovery, I just leaned into it because it felt real and it felt honest and it felt really good. And then I found out that there was sort of a shortage of women and people of color in STEM spaces, which I had no clue of. And so I just kept going, and it being a science show is great. And now it's evolving even more. You know, now it's a little bit of a cooking show, and it always had a reading component. There were always reading activities involved. So it turned into a science show. You know, I am a natural scientist. I think most of us are natural scientists. Our lives are experiments. Our work, in many cases, are experiments. You know, we have questions, we find the answer, we try new things, we look at what works and what doesn't work, and we replicate those things to identify patterns in our lives, micro and macro. So it just naturally happened. And, you know, 10 years later, I'm a Harvard acknowledged science communicator. What the heck is that? You know, so it just happened.
I love that, because it makes it more authentic when you know, rather than set out to like do this one thing and stay on this one path, to allow it to evolve and to follow your own curiosity, I think is always a beneficial thing. So you talked about you know, being inspired by that everyday science and helping kids to think critically. I wonder if that is a big factor that's missing right now, because especially with everything going on in the world, you know, with people having different opinions on why it's happening or what the best course of action is, I wonder if, like, at some point education fell off from teaching people critical thinking. Because it's very clear to me sometimes, like, well, that is an illogical argument, or like, that's not a way to debate, or that's a straw man, or, you know, different fallacies in logical thinking, basically. And so I don't know, I really love this idea of teaching kids to think critically, teaching them some sort of elements of the scientific method.
Well, the first thing I would say is that specifically the public school system, which most of us in the United States specifically have engaged with, and then certainly, you know, we've all participated in the last, you know, 200 or so years, maybe 150 years. Public education was not meant to teach us to think critically. It was meant to teach us how to follow directions and instructions, and be ready for farm and factory work. I mean, what we have, you know, in public education, very much so was intentionally a function to serve an industrial complex, which is what we are all living in and living through. So I didn't, honestly, like, I'm grateful for my parents, because I was the kid that talked a lot. I talk a lot to this very day, right? But I talked a lot. I was always asking questions. I was always hungry for information. Nothing was ever good. Like, just one answer was never good enough. Because I said so was not a justification for me. So I was often told I was an incorrigible kid. But it was, I was hungry to have the tools to think and discern for myself. And when I got to college, I have 2 associate's degrees. I never finished my bachelor's, but I have 2 associate's degrees from County College of Morris. Shout out to them. I learned what critical thinking was there. It wasn't until college, and most people that I know don't learn how to think until they get to college.
That's true.
And, you know, we can talk about how religion has informed that for billions of people. We can talk about how parenting styles have informed that. We can talk about the Industrial Revolution or the Industrial Age. We can talk about how information was intentionally kept from us, or certain learnings to think for ourselves were kept from us so that there could be structure and control, you know, which is not always a bad thing. But when we find ourselves in places like this, where we are questioning what facts are, where we're questioning what truth even means, when we're looking at an economy that relies on people's sort of sheep herd mentality of commerce, you know, it becomes very clear that it's necessary, and it's a human desire, it's a human longing to know and know for ourselves, right? And so teaching kids, you know, I keep referencing my parents. I'm so grateful that I was given the space, even though I wasn't always rewarded for it, or in most cases downright punished for it. I was always allowed to think and learn on my own. And you know, as a parent, which I am not, I'm a childcare provider and an aunt and a godmother to many. I know that it's hard sometimes to have to, you know, answer questions or make justifications, or even learn how to speak to specifically a child's level so that they can understand enough so that they can do what's necessary. But teaching children are going to be adults, and adults make the world go round. Adults grow into, you know, excuse where this is going to kind of, you know, back into, but adults grow into racist adults. Adults grow into sexist adults. You know, children grow into business owners. They grow into innovators. They grow into church leaders. They grow into business leaders. They grow into world leaders. And so we need those people. We need adults for this healed world that we all are desperate for, this equal world, this harmonized world. We need to be able to think for ourselves, and we need to be able to think from an intrinsically an inner truth that is supported by a global experience, so that we can be empathetic and compassionate, and fix the world. You know, truly, because the world is broken. So we need to train and teach and encourage children to think for themselves and synthesize information. Yeah.
If this event is not the catalyst, I don't know what it would be, right? This is very, I've been telling people, it's like, you know, in a movie when the two trains are going by and like the hero has to jump across at exactly the right time in order to survive. I feel like we have this little window in history, like we can take the leap and solve this stuff, or like we had our chance, you know?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to students who are getting ready to be adults, people who are graduating right now?
Yeah, shout out to Ciara, who asked that question. Sarah. It's not Ciara, yeah, it's other Sarah, for asking that question. So honestly, I have so much advice for you guys. And actually, this might be a really good time to tell you to head over to my website and sign up for my newsletter. I have a newsletter specifically for college students and young adults called Mentor Hour. I'm actually getting ready to launch a podcast that is about a year in the making called Mentor Hour. I literally have mentor hours that I give to college students. So all the talks that I give tend to be at universities and colleges. So maybe step one is sign up for that newsletter and stay tuned to the podcast, specifically because the advice that I'm going to give is the advice that I followed. Who do you want to be? That's the first question I have for you. And not, oh, I want to be rich and I want to be famous, or I want a job, or I want security. Not that, but who do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? What things in the world do you care about? Are you frustrated by? Are you encouraged by? Who are you, and who do you want to be? Because I'll even back up and say this. A guiding light that I have, or a guiding ethos that I have that I share with everyone is this. When you're between the ages of 0 and 20, you belong to your parents. If you are like the majority of the world, I'm not talking about the, you know, exceptions, but if you are like the majority of the world, you belong to your parents. Your parents are telling you what they need you to do and be, and what it looks like to live in the world. So you are your parents. When you get to be 20 to 30, that's when you learn that you don't know anything.
Hopefully you learn that.
You will learn it. And you'll learn it, and you will react one of two ways, okay? From 0 to 20, you belong to your parents. You're not your own. You're not yourself. From 20 to 30, you get to know who you are. You get to know who you aren't. You get to know that you don't know very much, and that there's more to learn, and that the things that you thought you wanted to do and be from 0 to 20 may not be the right thing. So from 20 to 30, dive in to every experience, every friend group, every class, every hobby. Identify mentors, ask questions, try everything. Learn how to not be hard on yourself for changing your mind. And I highly encourage / discourage people from even, you know, committing to a dating relationship in that time, because you don't know who you are or where you're headed in that time frame. So there's no way you can choose a partner or even a career for the rest of your life that is going to be true and grow with who you are headed toward. So from 0 to 20, you're your parents. Do what you got to do to get through that. 20 to 30, try everything. Identify mentors and role models and dive in. Every job, every relationship, just get to know. And then when you're from 30 to 40, personally, I believe that's when you can open up your life to a career commitment, a marriage commitment. And then I personally think that when you're 40, you can have kids. But anywho, we'll talk about that later. But I would just say, if you are in college and you're getting ready to graduate, first of all, what I need to tell you right now is the world is drastically different than what your parents, what the media, what colleges have ever told you. It's very different. It's very, very, very different. It has changed amazingly, and in ways that I can't predict. But what I will say is the thing that hasn't changed is the time that you have to discover who you are. So make a point, intentionally discover who you are. Don't accidentally back into who you are, because I for sure did. Most of the people in my friend group and professional group backed into this reality, and it can be painful and hurtful, for sure, and discouraging. And you can grab hold of an identity that's not real. Oh, I'm a failure. Oh, I'm going to be single forever, or whatever it is. But just who do you want to be? And then experiment against that and really pay attention. You are going to be fine. You won't go hungry. You won't be homeless. You won't, truly, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions of who it is that you are and who it is that you want to be. And then when you start having senses of what that could look like or what that could be, then start looking for opportunities, then start looking for, love relationships, then do those things then. But don't commit to anything at that point. I think, the world that we live in, is in such a rush for us. You got to have kids now. You got to have your career now. You got to make 6 figures by 30. A Mercedes is, is the thing that is success for you. And those things aren't true. What does success look like to you? Do you know? I bet you know what success looks like on Instagram. I'm certain that you know what success looks like to your parents, but what does it look like to you? Maybe you don't even like driving. Me, I don't even like driving. So a Mercedes doesn't mean anything. So my first piece of advice truly is to get to know you and who you want to be, and then have experiences against that. Endeavor to intentionally come to terms with that reality, and then live from that place.
I love that. You know,
And
so
then sign
much
up for, and then sign up for my newsletter.
Yeah, I'm going to sign up for that too, because I always get good advice from you. But, you know, looking back on my 20s, I wish I had trusted my gut more, my own intuition, and like acted on that more. And I really have come to believe that, you know, you don't get to like declare a passion or declare a purpose as much as you follow your curiosity and find purpose in that, you know, like bring excellence to every job you do. Like no one should be above any job. And I know millennials get accused a lot of like not showing up and like wanting a promotion too soon and a raise too soon. And some do, yeah, well, some do, some don't. You know, I've had awesome employees and interns that were younger than I am, and we're not like that. But I have had some people who are like that. So it's both. But like bringing excellence to everything you do will pay off because you still have to go somewhere from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to put it out there, Mike, I fell in love with fashion, high fashion, when I was like 10. And when I was 12, I applied to the Fashion Institute of Technology, which is a college.
I didn't know that.
Oh, girl, yeah. Neither of my parents went to college. So, you know, my father was, you know, an amazing man, but, you know, my dad was illiterate. My dad was born in the post-Depression Jim Crow South. He was a carpenter. So he had no idea how to prepare me for college. My mom was essentially a single mom for her entire life. She had 4 kids by the time she was 26. You know, her first kid she had at 16. She had never gone to college and had no idea what it meant to prepare me for college. So I didn't know that at 12 you couldn't skip high school. And I applied and I got this amazing, you know, note back that said, you know, thanks for applying. Here's your application feedback, but also, you know, when you get to high school, you know, feel free to apply for this program that we have for summer and Saturday classes for high school students specifically that are interested in fashion, and you know, and I did, and so by the time I was 15, I was in college at FIT. At 16, I was interning at Dolce & Gabbana, the showroom, not the floor, you know, the retail floor, the retail store, but working with designers, working with photographers, you know, similarly, you know, excuse me, and I thought that I wanted to work in fashion. I was convinced I was going to become Anna Wintour. I was convinced that Andre Leontali was going to be my best friend forever. I was convinced that that was what my future was going to be. And at 16, in that experience, I realized that fashion was not the industry for me. Magazines, Fashion Week, is literally 2% of the fashion world. And it honestly represents a very teeny tiny sliver of the entire industry. Fashion is so much more than that. And so I got to learn really early that fashion wasn't really the thing that I wanted to do, but had I gone to college and, you know, done this whole thing and gotten these jobs, I would have been committed to the wrong things for too long. And so don't be afraid to change. I literally started out wanting to work in fashion. Did it for, you know, 2-3 years, and then, you know, ended up working in television and then advertising, and now making YouTube videos, which was not even a thought 15 years ago. What's been how the world has evolved and been invented itself created opportunities and interests that didn't exist then. So allow yourself to, like I said, dabble and have experiences. Don't idealize, you know, idealize a thing. Understand why you're attracted to that thing, because you can find the fulfillment in other places.
Well, we promised we would talk about money, so I want to be sure we get to it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and you know what I think the angle is on money that we have talked about over time, and that I think you are really good at, is the ask. And we don't always ask for the money that we need or that we deserve. And so you have experience asking for the money you need. You crowdfunded a season of the Fab Lab successfully, and then asking for the money you deserve. Like, you know, everybody wants to be a speaker now, or at least everyone who comes to me for coaching. And so, you know, when it comes to getting booked, it's very easy to get booked for free, but getting paid to do actual work, you know, when you have an expertise in, you know, getting an event going or emceeing or being on the mic, on camera, getting paid for that work. So where do we even begin? Some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, do you wanna ask a question, or if anybody else here has a specific question about that, I'm happy to answer it. But because I could talk. You know me, girl. I could talk forever. And I would start in the most.
Don't even worry. Yeah, well, first let's start with the crowdfunding. I mean, when you crowdfund, you have to start with asking people you know to support your work, your job. And that's not something one does as an accountant or as a lawyer or as, you know, traditional jobs. It's something that artists do largely, or people who are, you know, coming up with a new thing. So tell me about that experience.
Yeah, so I crowdfunded 3 times, specifically for the Fab Lab. The first time was in 2011. I think it was 2011. The project was just more than a year old, and I was still really insecure and did not know how to ask, and if I did know how to ask, I didn't know how to ask for myself. I didn't truly believe that the project itself could be successful or was really worthy of being seen. I knew that I needed money to do it, but I was too insecure, too afraid, too something to really go for it. So I literally set it and forget it, which I see most people doing over the last, 10 years of crowdfunding really being a thing. I'll make the I Fund Women page and I'll let it go live, or I'll make the Kickstarter page and I'll let it go live, or Indiegogo or whatever it is, or GoFundMe. But, and maybe I'll put it on my Facebook page, or maybe I'll send it in a mass text, but then I won't say anything else because I don't want to bother anyone, or I don't, and I raised like $1,200 of the $10,000 that I needed. And when I didn't raise all the money, I felt so discouraged, and I wanted to, I was like, nobody likes this. I just got to stop. And then 3 or 4 years later, I did it again, but I did it from a place of really wanting the project to happen, and not just really wanting it to happen, but again, the vision that I have for the world, the vision that I have for kids, the vision became the focal point. And so I wasn't asking people for money for me. I was looking for money for the mission, which I think is I've heard people say that a lot, and in the last like maybe year, and it really means a lot to me, especially as a woman, especially as a person of color. It's all about, working hard, or even doing the most for the least, and then hoping that there is some recognition, or just continuing to cultivate on fumes. Most of us are working from fumes, and I certainly was at the time, but I was so serious about my kids. I was so serious about this mission that I refused to let it go. And I learned in that season, my second time crowdfunding, you have to ask people directly. Like, you have to really go for it. And what I discovered is that most people want to help you, even if they're not your core audience, if they're just your friends and your family, or sort of peripheral professional acquaintances, or whatever it is. If you can say, I've been doing this thing, and it means a lot, not just to me, but to the world, or to your family, or to a shared value, or whatever it is. Do you have $10? Do you have $5? Do you have $50? Can you help me meet this goal? I'm not asking you for $10,000. I'm asking you to help me get to $10,000. Can you help me with $5? Can you help this mission? Can you get on board this mission at $10? And no one said no. If they didn't have it personally, I don't have it, but I'll promote the crap out of it. But legitimately, 8 or 9 out of 10 people always said yes, and then gave more than what I asked for, asking specific people for a specific amount that they could say yes or no to, and activate on, and then by their own volition giving more, and sharing, and becoming enthusiasts, becoming evangelizers, getting other people in their network that you don't know on board.
So when you are going out to advocate yourself, and it's not as public, like say behind the scenes, someone wants you to host a show, somebody wants you to speak at a conference, how do you approach it the same way, like in a mission?
No, I don't. I mean, sort of yes, because my life is my mission, and my my mission informs all the different things that I do. But then also I have to realize that, yeah, this is work. You are asked, because this is the other thing. It's one thing if you're like, I want to be a TED speaker, so let me email, you know, the TED people in my city, or, you know, broadly, or whatever it is, to see if I can go and talk, or, you know, I want to do this. So let me go and seek out the opportunities and ask others. I never did that. I never had to do that, just because. So actually, hold on one second. I'm sorry. I have to get my charger. Hold on one second.
So I will say, while she's doing that Lindsey has been, you know, host at TEDx Portland, and TEDx Portland is this major production. It's like 3,000 people in the main auditorium where, you know, all the major touring shows come through. And, you know, we've had many conversations though about, like, at other business conferences and different events, how, you know, people always try to book speakers for free. And even, I think this is right, Lindsey, that you've been speaking at conferences and you find out that some people were getting paid and some people weren't.
Oh yeah. So just to pick up where I left off. So if you are asking, that's one thing. But if someone comes to you and asks you, it's because they want you and what you have to offer. They already know that you bring a value. They already know that you come with something, either a subject matter expertise, or an audience, you know, or a skill, a marketing skill, or whatever it is. So if someone's asking you, or in this case, when people ask me, you know, there was a time that I was like, oh my God, people are asking me to do things. Yes, yes, yes. And then my schedule is packed and I don't have time to do any of the things that I'm really passionate about. And also I can't pay my rent, but I'm so busy. And I have this little saying, I can't be busy and broke.
I love that.
Let that sink in if you're a woman. Let that sink in if you're a person of color. I can't be busy and broke. The end. So, and I was so busy and so broke for so long that at a certain point, I just decided, if you ask me for something, I get to ask you for something in return. And how you respond informs how we move forward. So, you know, hey, Lindsey, will you come give a talk on marketing to this audience of whoever's? Sure. This is my fee. And if that's cool, I would love to hear more. Or, you know, because in some cases, just to sort of back into the comment that you made about the conversations we've had, Ciara, people will throw events and sell tickets that are anywhere from $25, okay, to $2,500 if you're going to certain conferences like South by, or, you know, and not to name South by specifically, because this isn't the case with South by in my case, but these huge conferences with these huge ticket prices, and then it's, oh, well, but it's good exposure for you. Well, guess what? You called me. I don't need exposure.
I've been exposed. That's how you know me.
I don't need exposure. I need a check, my friend. Yeah. So this is the check that I'm asking you for, because I know that me giving you this information, or me giving your audience this information, means money to them. Mm-hmm. They are going to get a return on their investment. So if you value me enough to ask me to do it, what does the value actually mean to you? Because this is what it means. My time equals this. This is how much my time is worth to me. And you respecting me, not just asking me to do something so it benefits you, but respecting that what I'm giving is such a value and benefit to you that you're willing to pay for it, lets me know that you're a worthwhile place to participate. So, you know, getting an email, hey, Lindsey, will you come and give this talk? Will you come and do this visitation? Will you come and do this workshop? Will you come and do this, this thing? This is my fee. If you're open to it, great. We can move forward from there. So literally just reflexively asking. You ask me, I get to ask you. I have a friend, Mata Zapata, who founded Switchboard, which many places, companies and communities participate in. It's built on the ask offer model. It's two. it's two things. It's not, this isn't a one-way street. The flow of energy has to be protected and maintained so that we all have what we need to get where we're going. So honestly, just asking, put on the big girl panties, putting on the big boy boxers, and knowing what you want. Because that's another thing. I can't tell you how many times it's like, hey, will you do this project for me? Sure. You know, what's your budget? No. I want you to tell me that you're $1,500 for this particular thing. I want you to tell me that you expect $50 an hour or $150 an hour or $500 an hour. I want to know that you already have a flag on your planet of what it is that you're worth, so that I can know what to respond to. Because if I have to negotiate what you're worth, either I'm going to lowball you, or I'm going to get frustrated and not care and like get an impression of you that you don't know, and you're not actually, you know, the type of discerning person, discerning and decisive person that I want for whatever the thing is. I'm really attracted to and turned on by professionally people who are like, this is how much my time is worth. This is my menu of options. I do other things, but this is my base price for an hour of consulting, or for a workshop, or for a talk, or for whatever it is. So know how much you want, and you can play with it, you can toy with it, you can try, and it can change, but know what you want, and don't be afraid to ask for it as soon as they ask you for something, especially if it's a person you don't know, you know, who's sort of coming out of seemingly nowhere, asking for this expertise that's specific to you. Know what you want, and don't be afraid to counter it immediately. Don't get 3 or 4 emails or 5 or 6 calls down the line, and then, oh, hey, by the way, can I have some money? No.
No, I love that approach, because I think it builds trust to say, this is the price. Because when you're dodgy about the price, then people, like, it really starts things off on the bad foot.
Yeah, it gets weird. Yeah.
And if you wait too long to say the price, then it gets weird.
Yeah, for sure.
Because people are wondering and trying to figure you out. And I don't know, I haven't seen it work to my advantage very often.
It never has worked for me, ever. Ever.
Well, so we're almost up at an hour here. So I've got to ask you our traditional pregame question, which is, how do you, for yourself personally, define success?
You know, it honestly, it really depends. It depends on what the thing is. I mean, life success, success on a project, success, you know, what does a successful day look like? You know, today, for instance, I showered, I put on fresh clothes, I washed my dishes, success, you know? But, you know, with the Fab Lab, you know, I want an Emmy. I want an Emmy someday. So I wanted a book deal, successful. You know, I wanted 10,000 subscribers, successful. You know, now I want 100,000 subscribers because I want to grow my audience. And I'm really committed to, you know, getting the mission and the content to as many people as possible. But, you know, what is the thing? You know, are we talking about life success? Are we talking about professional success? Are we talking about, you know, just sort of the day-to-day things? And so, you know, in a grand sense, for me, success truly looks like participating in the healing, the tangible healing of billions of people. I mean, really, I want this world to be more whole and more healed and more loved from the inside out and the outside in. And, you know, hearing from parents that something changed their mind about how they parent, or, you know, how they think about what is possible for their kid because they're a girl or because they're, you know, a person of color kid or whatever it is, that's success to me. You know, I had a dad hit me up about a year ago via email, a dad that I babysat for a bajillion years ago. He had a little boy who liked to wear skirts. You know, 10 years ago, we weren't really talking about trans children as much as we are, I think, right now, or even raising trans children or accepting them in community spaces. And, you know, I'm not a parent. I'm never going to tell a parent how to parent, but I felt like this little dad You, dad, who's hyper masculine, you know, NYPD police chief, like big deal guy. There's several of them, so God knows which one, but you know, but like here you are, your idea of what masculinity is very specific. Your identity and your conditioned understanding of what masculinity is what's informing how you're raising your son. From a place of insecurities, from a place of, I will go so far as to say, pain. You know, we all, none of us are whole humans. None of us. We are all hurt. We are all that. And oftentimes, what I find with the raising of children, we're raising our kids from that hurt. We're raising our kids from that sort of sense of, you know, what I have been told is right, or not wanting to be embarrassed, or whatever it is. And so I had a talk with this dad one time, because he's like, he wants to wear a skirt and I don't let him, and you know, and I was like, if you villainize and demonize this, you might create a larger problem. You might create a complex, because not for nothing, he's a little boy. This little boy doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know who he wants to be. He just knows he likes things that are sparkly and that twirl. That's all that he knows. He likes that. And that makes, and it's fun for him. But for you, dad, you're seeing a sissy, or you're seeing you know, a homosexual. I mean, I'm being very candid right now. You're seeing something that isn't necessarily true, and you're seeing it through the lens of what you've been informed by, that being homosexual is bad, that wearing, you know, being a boy wearing a skirt is not masculine. And, you know, maybe you even, you know, beat somebody up one day when you were a kid because they were doing it and your friends were doing it, or whatever it is. And so you're afraid for your kid to do this thing. But if you just let this kid discover himself and have fun, and not, you know, take something away from him that just will create crying and problems and all these things, and then plant a seed of something in him that will grow into something that isn't true and choke out what is true, you'll have a bigger problem on your hands. You are the parent. You don't want your kid to wear a skirt. I get it. I follow your directions and your rules. You pay me, but consider for a moment what is informing this feeling you have, and this angry situation, you know, this angry feeling that you have about this. 10 years later, this little boy is, you know, 14 years old. He's on the football team. You know, he's handsome and strapping, you know, and he has a wonderful relationship with his dad. And his dad emailed me to just say, you know, hey, I know this is a little bit weird, but I just wanted to say thank you, because you were right. And I was able to let go of a lot of things, you know, as a man, that helped me to raise a young man that I'm really proud of. That's success to me. That's profoundly successful to me. I've got, you know, my sort of like first, second, and third season kids who are, you know, in New Jersey or New York, who I used to babysit for. You know, if there's 20 of them, I get messages. I follow them all on Instagram. They follow me. Several of them are in college now and studying science, neuroscience, and engineering, and all these things that, again, weren't even invented before. So I don't know if I had anything to do with it, but none of their parents were scientists or engineers. And here they are, you know, on their way to participating in this new world, in these awesome, you know, categories from who knows where. That's success to me. But then also, like I said, an Emmy is success. A book deal is success. 100,000 now, you know, I just cleared 10,000, well, a while back, 10,000 subscribers. That's success. You know, being able to live comfortably in a way that is true and authentic to me. I don't need a big Oprah-sized mansion. I just want to make sure that I have what I have is what I like. It's what makes me feel good. I like to look at it. I like to invite others in. So that's success. I mean, we get to define what success is for us. We get to define what it looks like, but I think you have to have a vision first. I think most of us have other people's visions. I think most of us have, you know, get validation from external markers. Oh, this other person has, you know, a 20-inch waist and a 34-inch hips and, you know, Fashion Nova or whatever it is. I don't know. You know, these other people have the Lamborghinis. These other people. So that must be what success is. But is that true for you? Is it true? Is it true for you? I think knowing what's true for you is the secret to feeling like a successful human being. Yeah, so that's what success is to me. It's success to me is mine, being able to continue to do the work and put the things in the world that I deeply desire to, that I think the world needs, and being equipped financially, spiritually, socially to do that is success. But then also, we are material human beings and we live in a material world. And so there are going to be some materials that indicate success to you, and not shaming yourself or even talking yourself out of that reality. And then enjoying it. Honestly, the punctuation is enjoying it. Enjoying what I have, and not looking around at what other people have. You know, do not covet your brother's wife or property, right? Or whatever. Yeah. Don't covet what other people have. That's your success. That's yours. What is my success? Oh, I know that you're a successful person, so I must have what you have, and then I'll be successful. No. There's something that belongs to me that I will know when I see it that will be success for me. What is mine? Success to me is having a deep sense and grounding in what is mine, and letting things continue to grow from that place. Awesome. Lindsey, how can everyone continue to connect with you? Where do we follow? Where do we log on? Yeah, all over the place. I, Lindsey Murphy on Instagram, the Fab Lab HQ. If you have kids, those are both on Instagram. You can sign up for my newsletter at ilindsey.murphy.com. Yeah. And keep watching, because it seems like you're just never going to stop creating and adapting. And we're just so grateful to have your insights and your energy with us today. Thanks, Lindsey. Thank you. Bye, everybody. I spit it cold like lyrically I'm a problem. That's when the show starts. I get it, live it, I did it.